Yo, good morning, party people. It is December 31st, end of the year. Very exciting. Okay, so for our daily, I got to sleep in today, so sorry this is late. Usually I get up at some god-awful hour to do these videos before work. So, okay, today, December 31st, for our daily reading, we're in Leviticus 21:22, Nehemiah 3:4, Revelation 7:8, Psalm 33:34, and Proverbs 27, okay? So that's for our daily reading. Now today we are in the study of Nehemiah. We're in chapter 6, so if you have not seen any of the previous videos, I suggest you go back and watch them. They're pretty awesome. The book of Nehemiah, as we have talked about every day for quite a while, has been compiled by the scribe Ezra, right? So Ezra wrote First and Second Chronicles, the book of Ezra, and the book of Nehemiah. The whole point of his writing, of compiling those documents and bringing those stories together, is to encourage the Jews that go back to Israel and to rebuild Jerusalem and to rebuild the temple under the Persian kingdom, right? So in my little tattered map, this is where we're at on the timeline. This is Israel. These are the kingdoms down here. This is the Assyrian kingdom, the rise of the Babylonian kingdom, then the rise of the Persian kingdom. So we're all the way down here. This is Israel. Here's the story of Daniel, and here is Nehemiah, right? So this is the under King David. We had Saul, King David, then Solomon, and then the kingdom got split under Solomon's son, right? So this is the northern kingdom, also known as the kings of Israel. 2 of the tribes came down here, 10 went up there. This is the Davidic line. This is the line from which Jesus comes, and this is the Assyria took over these guys right about there. Babylon, Assyria continued to harass the southern kingdom, but then Babylon eventually took over here. So that's where you see the story of Daniel. Then you see the rise of the Persian kings, right? And so that's where we're at. So it's been a long tumultuous time. In the First and Second Chronicles, the book of Ezra, and the book of Nehemiah all kind of cover that time frame. So it's awesome historical references and a good foundation for understanding where Jesus came from, and everything that happens in the New Testament is the Old Testament, and the Pentateuch is the foundation, right? Everything he does reflects that, and everything there reflects him. Okay. So now we're in Nehemiah, and as we've been seeing in Nehemiah, each group that went back, so we had a group that went back, remember, here under the Persian king Cyrus. The first group went back under Zerubbabel, the second group went back under Ezra, and now we're seeing the third group that went back under Nehemiah. Each group had a specific task that they were focused on. We're seeing here in Nehemiah, they're focused on rebuilding the wall, right? So the wall had been destroyed, the temple had been broken down. The previous groups had rebuilt the temple, worked on cleaning up the marriages and cleaning up the society itself and getting everybody refocused on God. And now Nehemiah is focusing on the wall. Well, this is freaking out all the people around them, right? So as I mentioned before, we see in the New Testament when Jesus did had the incident with the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman, remember? And he tells the story of the Good Samaritan, right? So this goes against their entire historical, traditional animosity against the Samaritans. And you see all the way back here, the book of Nehemiah and the book of Ezra explain where some of that comes from, right? So when we see that story of Jesus with the woman at the well and how everybody was horrified because he was talking to a Samaritan, right? So we understood that the Samaritans were, when these falls happened, there was a lot of, when the fall of the kingdoms happened, the Jews that remained there had intermarried with a lot of the locals, right? So there's always been a remnant there, but they intermarried, and so that's where some of the Samaritan peoples came from. But there's also the city of Samaria, right? So we see these stories in the New Testament, but if you're not studying the Old Testament, you don't understand the real depth of what that means. So you see here in Nehemiah, the main people that were coming against, oh, my dogs are freaking out. The main people that were coming against the rebuilding of the wall and the Jewish people fulfilling God's plan was the Samaritans. And so their ancient animosity goes all the way back to the rebuilding of the wall during the Persian king and King Cyrus. So it's just important to study the Old Testament as well as the New, because there's so many things that will open your eyes. Now, I didn't even understand that until just recently. So I'd read it a million times, but I didn't put the 2 and 2 together. Okay, so to say all that, we are now he's had, as he's been rebuilding the wall and the animosity from the locals has increased. It's gotten to the point where in previous chapters that we'd studied, the people that are building the wall are spending the night inside the city, because there are some people that are helping them that live outside of the walled area. They live out in the countryside. He's asked them to stay inside, and they're working 24 hours a day. They have teams of people, and they're also wearing weapons on their side because it's so dangerous. The constant threat now of attack is real, and so as they continue to push forward, the threat is becoming more apparent and more less and more it's more obvious, right? They're more obvious in their threats. So now you're seeing in chapter 5, it's coming to the point that they're sending letters and harassing Nehemiah personally now. All right, so here in chapter 5 it says, now there was a great not chapter 5, sorry, we're in chapter 6. So it says, now this starts with conspiracy against Nehemiah. So that's how it starts. Now it happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had rebuilt the wall and that there was no breaks left in it, though at that time I had not hung the doors and the gates, that Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, saying, come, let us meet together among the villages in the plain of Ono. But they sought to do me harm. So here what they're saying is, in the commentary they said that this was definitely a plan to assassinate him. They were trying to get him out away from Jerusalem where he'd be more vulnerable, and they were going to kill him. Then it says, so I sent messengers to them saying, I am doing a great work so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and go down to you? But they sent me this message 4 times, and I answered them in the same manner. Then Sanballat sent his servant to me as before, the 5th time, with an open letter in his hand. Okay, so now it's going to read here the letter. But what's interesting is that when it says that it sent an open letter in his hand, so the letter that I'm about to read was open so that not only would the enemies within Jerusalem be able to read it, so they would see what the people they were conspiring with, because there were people within Nehemiah's inner circle that were not on his side. They were pretending to be on his side, but they were spies and they were working for the enemies. And many of this is because they were intermarried. But it was also an open letter so that they could discourage the people who were timid, right? So there were people that were probably just your everyday people that were following Nehemiah, that felt led by God, that this was a great thing, but they were easily made afraid because they're very vulnerable. This is a very scary situation to have to be doing this work with weapons on, right? And the nation was divided. There were spies everywhere, and everybody knew that. So this is the open letter. You can also what came to my mind when I read this, the open letter, and the idea that this was used for deception and intimidation and just really it's just mental warfare, right? Psychological warfare. It's very similar to how in present day, there's leaks, right? They get out that get out to the news about things that are going on in the government or whatever. There's leaks. That's exactly what this is, an open letter, right? To try and scare people and intimidate people. So this is like a leak, like a modern day leak to the public. So this is what the letter says. It is reported among the nations, and Geshem says, Geshem's the Arab guy, that you and the Jews plan to rebel. Therefore, according to these rumors, you are rebuilding the wall that you may be their king. And you have also appointed prophets to proclaim concerning you at Jerusalem, saying, there is a king in Judah. Now these matters will be reported to the king. So come, therefore, and let us consult together. So what they're saying is that he's doing a rebellion, and he's paying people to go ahead and proclaim him as king, but come and talk to us. Come and meet with us, and we'll help you figure all this out and straighten it all out and all this crap, right? Then I said to him, saying, no such things as you say are being done, but you invent them in your own heart. So everybody knows that he was sent by the king, right? That he has the king's permission. He knows that. They know that. All the people know that. He has actual written letters by the king of Persia to come and rebuild the city. So he just says his answers back are just boom, boom, boom. You know that's not true. We know that's not true. You're making it up. I'm busy. It's kind of like what he responded. So I have to stop there. I'm going to do another quick video real quick, and we should be able to finish 6 today. All right, so peace. Jesus is coming. Read your Bible. Hold tight.